Hello friends, this is Grief speaking. Happy Halloween, and today we're looking at Tier 4 of the body horror Iceberg, and this one's just chock full of all the bloody gory good stuff. I just want to say thanks again for all the nice comments and all the new people jumping aboard, but I don't want to waste any time getting into this tier because it's massive and disgusting. My mask is dumb. Let's just do it. My Metamorphosis Begins refers to a void comic in which a man undergoes an agonizing metamorphosis ritual, with the last panel revealing his new form. It became a popular meme back in 2020 where the new form usually serves as a punchline. 31 Minutos. This is a Chilean comedy television series that's a parody of 60 Minutes and features a ton of music. At least that's what I gather since I don't speak the language. As far as the body horror goes, the show features a zombie butler that has his eyeball hanging out, and there's an entire music video with a bunch of zombies performing. 9. 9 is a largely overlooked animated film from 2009 where a scientist creates a sentient rag doll that adventures through a post-apocalyptic world. All the dolls in this movie are imperfect in different ways, and the idea that they're reanimated and actually given life from the scientist is pretty interesting. Jamer. Jamer, I think that's how you say it, is a YouTube animator whose videos often feature characters' bodies distorting in different ways. I have to say, I think this animation stands out as being particularly good in this area of YouTube. A Bad Case of Stripes. A Bad Case of Stripes is a children's book about a girl who wakes up with thick stripes on her skin that change shape depending on what people yell out. Ahenobarbus Henocied. I might be saying that wrong too. This is a YouTube video with a very unsettling face that chomps its teeth while strange clicking noises just repeat. As the video goes on, the face multiplies and the sounds get more intense, inducing anxiety for a lot of people. It's also worth noting that there is a whole story about a Facebook user with this name who is randomly adding people and then sending them cheese pizza and gore. And apparently the FBI was even investigating it, but once you say the FBI is investigating something internet related, I start getting more skeptical on whether it's true, but interesting nonetheless. This is the kind of thing I love about this iceberg. We go from a children's book to predatory internet entities. The range of body horror is hilarious. Altered States. Altered States is a 1980s science fiction body horror movie about a psychopathologist who begins researching altered states of consciousness. He travels to Mexico to join a tribe in a ceremony in which they share hallucinatory states. After some bizarre visions, he takes some of the hallucinatory concoction with him to continue research, taking them while in a sensory deprivation tank, and it gets real weird after that. He begins changing forms. At first he changes into a caveman, which is already somewhat disturbing, and eventually he devolves back into primordial ooze with all the glory of disgusting 80s effects. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I mean, what can you say about this one? It's a cult classic comedy horror in the same vein as Killer Clowns from Outer Space, with a ridiculous premise and plenty of satire. They're sentient tomatoes who eat people alive. It's a lot of good fun. In the sequels, they actually have human faces, which is even more disturbing, although I prefer when there's just a featureless tomato barreling towards people because it's just more funny. Barefoot Gen. Barefoot Gen is a manga turned animated film based on the author's own experience as a Hiroshima survivor and features some gnarly imagery of people's bodies as the bombs fell and the aftermath. Basket Case. This is a really weird movie in the best way. It's about a man who carries around a large basket hiding something inside. That something turns out to be his deformed conjoined twin that was separated from him via surgery. It's basically a deformed head with an arm. The brothers are on a revenge mission to kill the surgeon who separated them. Begotten. Begotten is a surreal horror movie from 1990 that looks like it's from 1890, but that doesn't stop it from being creepy as hell and really weird. I mean, just let me read you the first few sentences of the film synopsis. Inside a small shack, a robed figure dubbed God Killing Himself in the film's credits disembowels himself using a straight razor. After removing some of his internal organs, the robed god dies. A woman, Mother Earth, then emerges from his mutilated remains. She brings the corpse to arousal and uses his semen to impregnate herself. Talk about hitting the ground running. I mean, what the Well, the body horror comes into play with the dead god looking very disturbing, along with Mother Earth's son who's disfigured. The entire movie's on YouTube, and also Spooky Rice does a breakdown if you want to just check out all the weird parts. Beastock Burden album cover. This refers to this album art. I don't know if there's much to say about it other than what the hell? Biohunter. Biohunter is a manga and anime about two molecular biologists who take on humans with strange viruses that make them less human and more demonic. Black Sheep. This is not the 1996 comedy starring Chris Farley and David Spade, but the 2006 movie about zombie sheep. Yeah, this movie's bonkers. Basically, zombie sheep are on the attack as they brutally kill and mutilate people, but the true body horror comes into play when a character gets bit in the foot and it begins turning into a hoof, which is creepy enough, but then his entire body transforms into a were-sheep. Yeah, like I said, bonkers. Blue Channel, THALASIN. Blue Channel THALASIN is a viral analog horror video. The video is a mock television commercial for a drug called THALASIN that causes a variety of emotions in the user. In the second half of the video, the host talks about THALASIN Plus, which allows users to experience emotions beyond previous natural capabilities, represented by disturbing, body horror-esque images of someone striking each facial expression. Body Melt. This film is about the residents of a small town who get free dietary supplement pills in the mail and unknowingly become test subjects for the new drug. Unfortunately, as you'd expect, the drug causes horrifying side effects, including but not limited to liquefying flesh, elongated tongues, exploding stomachs, exploding penises, imploding heads, monstrous births, tentacles growing out of the face, living mucus, sentient placentas, and other gruesome mutations. Well, all I gotta say is Sentient Placentas is a cool-ass band name, but this movie's absolutely disgusting. I gotta check it out. Brain Scan. Brain Scan is a movie about a teenage gamer who tries out a new video game called Brain Scan. Within the game is a supernatural entity known as the Trickster who possesses the kid and uses him to murder. There are several body horror scenes like the Trickster bending his fingers back and gouging his eyes out, and the Trickster and the kid fusing together into a nightmare abomination, although that's just a deleted scene. Carved. Carved, or A Slit-Mouthed Woman, is a Japanese horror film based off the Japanese folktale about a woman whose mouth has been sliced open on both sides. The woman will ask you if you think she's beautiful, and depending on how you reply, she'll either kill you or make you beautiful like her by cutting your mouth as well. The film does a good job showing off the terror of this woman's face. Closet Monster. Closet Monster is a film about a teenager struggling with his homosexuality and has hallucinations. In certain situations, the boy feels pain in his stomach. Eventually, during a fight with his father, the pain gets so severe and a rod protrudes out of him, which he pulls out. This is, of course, a hallucination, but body horror nonetheless. Clown. Clown is a film where a man wears an old clown outfit he finds in his basement for his son's birthday party. He falls asleep in the outfit and wakes up the next morning to find he can't take it off. Slowly, the outfit merges with his actual body as he slowly transforms into a clown. It's a really dark movie, but pretty cool concept. Cool world. The whole plot of this movie is that there's this cartoon world, and in this world, if a toon has sex with a human, they become human. But if this happens and the world's cross over, things get pretty wacky. So they have to make sure this one really hot toon chick doesn't bang a human. What a weird movie. Anyway, spoilers, she does and turns human along with some other characters who begin shifting between human form and toon form. Daisy Brown. Daisy Brown is a web series and ARG about a woman feeding and raising a small humanoid monster named Alan. It's a pretty creepy series, and although it's simple, it's very effective. Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. This is a more comedic entry. The title explains it pretty well, but this is a cult classic movie about a living bed that eats people. I really wish I had more to say about it, but that really is the movie. It's a killer bed. Death Trash. Death Trash is a post-apocalyptic game that's been called a grimier, scarier, nastier Fallout, which makes sense because it does share some similar elements to the original Fallout game. Anyway, it features all kinds of blood and gore, mutated abominations, and dismemberment. Deterioration of Mind Over Matter. This is an art piece by Otto Rapp showing a human head deteriorating, and staring at it for too long can really give you the chills. Discover My Body. Discover My Body is a point-and-click horror game where you are a medical student testing the application of lab-synthesized fungi on a human test subject, and watch the disturbing results. Fish Hooks. Fish Hooks is a Disney Channel show about fish in high school, and the fish are sometimes portrayed with human faces or limbs. Freaked. Freaked is a radical, gross-out 90s comedy about a movie star who's held hostage by a mad scientist that turns people into freaks. It'd be disturbing if it wasn't so funny. Gemini Home Entertainment. This is one of the most iconic analog horror series, and I won't explain the entire thing. I think Wendigoon did that already. But basically it's a series of VHS tapes that explore various topics, including messages about an alien invasion by creatures known as woodcrawlers who take human hosts. Ginger Dead Man. The Ginger Dead Man is a bizarre comedy horror movie about a serial killer who is cremated and his ashes are mixed into a gingerbread mix by a witch, infusing his soul into a gingerbread man, which then goes on a killing spree. Also, the Ginger Dead Man is played by Gary Busey, so yeah. Godam. Godam is a Korean horror anthology show featuring several disturbing stories, mostly revolving around high school students. There are a couple of different gory things that happen in this series, like a man's eyes being pulled out, But one episode has some really creepy body horror when a student is bullied to the point of suicide. She then comes back as a vengeful ghost and takes her bully's legs. Then, when she finds that they don't suit her, she does the same to her teacher. Guinea pig movies. The guinea pig films are a series of Japanese exploitation films that are basically torture porn. The movies vary to some degree, but typically involve intense body mutilation and gore. The first couple of movies, The Devil's Experiment, which features teenage boys torturing and killing a girl, and Flowers of Flesh and Blood, where a serial killer slowly chops up a living woman one limb at a time, were so convincing that many people believed they were real. Famously, Charlie Sheen called the FBI after watching Flowers of Flesh and Blood, thinking it was a real snuff film. Another one worth mentioning is Mermaid in a Manhole, where a man finds a dying mermaid that he keeps in his bathtub as she slowly becomes covered in pus-filled sores and her body starts to decay. Yeah, fun stuff. Hamburger Helper Anatomy. Hamburger Helper Anatomy is a meme started by someone asking the question of what's the proper bone structure of Lefty, the Hamburger Helper mascot. Initially, the images were crude Photoshop, but this quickly grew into artists rendering their own terrifying versions. Harmony and Horror. This is another analog horror series in the vein of the Walton Files. It essentially follows a toy maker who goes insane and kills his family in brutal ways, who now come back as vengeful spirits, albeit distorted versions of themselves. Houseu. House is a fan-favorite Japanese haunted house movie with surreal special effects and outlandish scenarios. It's about a group of high school girls and their quarrels with a haunted house, including being eaten by a piano and an attacking floating decapitated head, just to name a couple. How Fish is Made. Another really weird game on the list is How Fish is Made. You play as a fish having an existential crisis. There's some light fish gore, but also the environments can be a little off-putting. The game even gives a trypophobia warning because some areas have patches of fleshy holes on the walls. I Can't Sleep. I Can't Sleep is an animated YouTube channel with a gothic, hand-drawn style that usually features the characters being injured or injuring themselves. The red blood is a stark contrast to the otherwise black and white imagery, and it looks pretty cool. Infernax. Infernax is a retro-style platforming game in the same vein as Castlevania. The game features grotesque enemies and bosses, and just copious amounts of gore. Inhumanoids. Inhumanoids is a cartoon about scientists and their fight against mutant-like creatures that came from under the earth. Jack Frost. This could be referring to two different movies. Jack Frost, the 1998 family-friendly movie about a dad being resurrected as a snowman in order to set things right with his son, or Jack Frost, the 1997 R-rated movie about a serial killer who gets genetic material on him which fuses in with the snow so he becomes a killer snowman. Yeah, it was a bad night when you're 8 years old and you get the two mixed up at the Blockbuster. John Schwankmayer Films. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but anyway, this guy's a Czech filmmaker and artist. He's a self-labeled surrealist known for his stop-motion animations and features. One of his films, for instance, is called Little Odik, about a childless couple who pretend a tree stump is their baby, but then it actually comes to life and demands to be fed. Killer 7. Killer 7 is a pretty unique video game where you play as 7 different assassins. The thing is, these assassins are actually manifestations of just one man who exhibits multifoliate persona phenomenon. This isn't just DID or multiple personality disorder. This guy actually biologically changes into the 7 different personas. There's also a terrestrial group in the game called Heaven's Smile who've been infected by a disease that evokes the need to kill, and their primary means of doing so is an exploding organ in their bodies. Les Viols. Les Viols is a really weird painting that features a woman whose face is replaced by a nude woman's torso. I'm not sure if I need to blur this or not. Leopold's Old Smithing Accident, Amphibia. Leopold Logel is a character from a Disney show called Amphibia, and he was stabbed in the throat by a metal pipe during a metal smithing accident, damaging his voice box. Let Me Hear Your War Cry. Let Me Hear Your War Cry is a classic weird YouTube video featuring a scene from Full Metal Jacket, but the characters' faces are replaced with what looks like doll heads as they continuously scream at each other. M. Stain. M. Stain is a truly bizarre PS1-style adventure game. It's all about the protagonist going for a job interview with the titular M. Stain. The interview gets more and more disturbing, and it eventually leads you to M. Stain's secret cult. As you approach his altar, you see several green-skinned children with blacked-out eyes, along with several other cult members. Anyway, his head leaves his body with the spine attached, and he has bat wings flying him around, and you have to fight him. This is another one of those games that I feel like I gotta play. Mad God. Mad God is an animated stop-motion masterpiece where a character travels through a nightmare underworld of tortured souls, ruined cities, and wretched monstrosities. The monster effects are top-notch here, and in my opinion, this is a must-see for animation fans. Manny. Manny is a YouTube short film featuring a mannequin head that moves during stop-motion animation, and as the video goes on, the head is progressively disfigured and eventually melted. Metallosis maligna. This is referring to a documentary about a fictional illness known as metallosis maligna that is a side effect of metal implants. The video showcases the implants growing long metal tendrils and eventually even shows a very disturbing patient who has half of his head and his left arm missing, which are replaced with metal pieces. Mother Russia Bleeds. Mother Russia Bleeds is a beat-em-up that takes place in an alternate Soviet Russia run by the Russian mob. The player is a gypsy who makes money street fighting before waking up in an underground government facility where they've been the test subjects of a new drug. It's basically a bloody revenge tale after this, but there are several disturbing enemies in the game, including hallucinations caused by the drug, which eventually manifests completely as a figure sitting on top of a giant heart that you must battle. Mr. Meaty. Mr. Meaty is about two teenagers who work at a McDonald's-like fast food restaurant, and the characters are all puppets with slightly distorted faces and bodies, which can be kind of disturbing. Mr. Simonette's Scar, Pay It Forward. This is probably one of the most weird and obscure entries on this list, but this is referring to Kevin Spacey's character in the romantic drama Pay It Forward. The character, Mr. Simonette, was abused as a child by his father, including being set on fire, which leaves him with some nasty scars, although, for the sake of this list, they're really not that bad. My Mom is a Surgeon. My Mom is a Surgeon is a dark comedy webcomic where a mother performs surgery on her daughter's mouth so that it resembles Predator. Nario Maru Darkside. Nario Maru Darkside may be my favorite discovery on this iceberg so far. It's a YouTube channel featuring stop-motion horror animation, and man, it's really good. There's a series called Deformed that basically features disturbing malformed creatures attacking and mutilating people's bodies. It's body horror heaven, and just go check it out if you haven't already. It's really cool. Needle Mouse. Needle Mouse is an analog horror video that starts off just Sonic the Hedgehog gameplay and quickly transcends into a horror story of someone who appears to have been trapped in the game or something. Anyway, there's a creepy pair of eyes that at one point turn into a disturbing, distorted Sonic character. Off the Air. Off the Air is a really strange Adult Swim show that aired at the 4 a.m. graveyard slot. It's usually an array of various footage blended together involving animation with psychedelic imagery and music. The body horror comes in with episodes like Animals, where animals are distorted and mashed together in various ways on screen. Oma, No More Heroes 3. Oma is a pink alien squid-like creature and boss in No More Heroes 3. A possible death has Oma shoot a pink beam at Travis that turns him into a pink cartoon blob-like creature. Paranoia Escape. This is a horror pinball-style game released on the PS1 that is truly chaotic. The levels are made up of strange creatures and human body parts. One level's covered in mouths, noses, and, well, I don't know how else to say it. I think those are buttholes. Perfect Vermin. Perfect Vermin is an indie horror game where you progress through an office building with a sledgehammer and destroy any furniture that looks out of place as a timer ticks down. A news reporter tells you not to waste time and guides you. The furniture you destroy explodes in a gory mess, and the news reporter also goes through some body horror himself as the game progresses, starting with a deadly nosebleed and ending as a crumbling mess with bleeding sores and tumors, discolored skin, and gross eyes and mouth. Poppy the Performer. This is a really strange 3D animated kids show from 2001. The characters can be creepy looking by themselves, but there are also just some disturbing moments that early CGI has always seemed to manifest. Quality Meats. Quality Meats is a short and sweet YouTube video of a supermarket, only there are strange meat humanoids walking toward the camera in a truly unsettling fashion. Rubber. Rubber is a movie you may have heard of as it stars a tire that has psychokinesis and goes on a killing spree where he uses his power to make people explode. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is a real-time strategy game from 2000 featuring really strange-looking humanoid characters and creatures. Saya no Uda. This is a weird one. It's a visual novel about a guy who gets into a car crash that leaves him mentally impaired. The way that this manifests is the fact that he sees the environment and people as disgusting lumps of flesh. Right before committing suicide, he meets a girl who looks beautiful and they start a relationship, although this girl is actually a hideous monster. Pretty interesting premise, I gotta say. Secret Mountain Fort Awesome. This is a Cartoon Network show about 5 monsters in a fraternity who do stunts. The characters are all hideous monsters, including this one guy he's just all butt. Chez St. John. Shay St. John is a fictional character and art project who appears in a series of surrealist, campy short films. You've probably seen this character around the creepy side of YouTube, but it's really just a human moving a mannequin in disturbing ways. Although the backstory is that she was a model who was disfigured in a train accident, and then they rebuilt her body with mannequin parts. Shed 17. This is essentially a mockumentary about Thomas and friends that's really morbid, but mainly the fact that the trains, including Thomas, are just bio-infused humans whose organs have been taken out and replaced by mechanical implants. Shoujo Tsubaki, aka Midori, is known as one of the most fucked up mangas and films of all time, and was even banned in many countries. I don't think it's that bad, at least as far as the blood and gore go, compared to a lot of other things on this list, but it definitely is really disturbing because of the pedophilia aspect. So, just to explain, Midori is a young girl whose mom dies. That's putting it lightly because rats eat her and it's really disgusting. Anyway, Midori's taken in by a circus troupe who basically rape and abuse her, including one dude who's missing all of his limbs, this other weird shriveled up character with a long neck. There's also a wizard in the movie who straight up kills people by deforming their bodies in grotesque ways. I mean, that's not even half of it, honestly. Smiley. Smiley is a 2012 horror film starring several big YouTube stars from the time. As they're stalked and killed by Smiley, an internet myth turned real entity who has stitched his eyes shut and cut his mouth into a smile. Straczynski and the Mysterious House. Straczynski and the Mysterious House is the story of 4 talking animals who discover a hidden mansion in the middle of a secret forest. Most notably this guy, the anthropomorphic worm character who became a huge meme. Struggling. Struggling is a game where you play as a 2-headed abomination and struggle your way through disturbing environments and fight other grotesque creatures and bosses. Takina. Takina is a YouTube animator and stop-motion artist whose videos often feature body mutilation and transformation. Tale of Tales. Tale of Tales is a fantasy horror film that tells 3 stories. One story is about 2 old sisters, one of which is turned young and beautiful by being breastfed by a witch. The king sees her and decides to make her his queen. All the while, the other sister, who's still old, keeps asking her how she became young again, and out of annoyance, the young sister tells her that she was flayed. So the old sister finds someone to flay her skin off, leaving her body bloody and disfigured. Teeth. Teeth is a film about a high school girl whose vagina grows teeth and bites off dudes' wieners. No, seriously, that's the movie. Thai Smile. Thai Smile is a really weird old commercial, or maybe parody of a commercial, where a flight attendant smiles at some passengers until her face rips from smiling. The ad ends with her face all bandaged up. The Brood. Cronenberg strikes again with The Brood, and man, what a weird one. I'll just give you the skinny as it pertains to body horror, but basically a woman through asexual reproduction has several kids, and I'm using kids loosely because these are strange dwarf-like creatures that are asexual, supposedly colorblind, naturally toothless, and devoid of a navel. Anyway, they attack and kill people. The Brothers Grimm movie. The Brothers Grimm features a lot of nightmare fuel. One notable case is that somehow this movie managed to make the gingerbread man scary by revealing him as an amorphous, indestructible mud monster, which starts off its presence by essentially melting a little girl's face and taking it for herself. The Brothers Grunt. By the same creator of Ed, Edd and Eddy, The Brothers Grunt features some really disturbing animation, and the brothers themselves are just really gross looking. The Darker Side of Nonsense album cover. So this is an album by a metal band called Dry Kill Logic, and well, there's not much to it. I mean, just look at it. The Dolls with Attitude. This is a Japanese horror short about a girl who decides that constant smiling solves everything. But then her face turns into a doll face, and everyone around her doesn't even acknowledge it. The Missing Parts of Maria Gwozdek. This is a game where you play as a woman named Maria who meets a stranger that offers her an unusual deal. The stranger will fulfill any of Maria's wishes, but in return for each wish, Maria will give them one of her organs. The Monument Mythos. God damn it, this iceberg keeps sending me down these huge rabbit holes, but basically the Monument Mythos is an analog horror seen through documentary-like videos that show an alternate Earth where there are slight differences from our reality. One not so slight difference is that there are Eldritch-style monsters that hide in national monuments like the Liberty Lurker, for instance, who lives in the Statue of Liberty. The Stuff, 1985. This is another wacky one about a sweet-filling substance known as the Stuff that's quickly sold in stores across the nation, only the Stuff is actually a parasitic alien organism that gradually takes over the brain. It then mutates those who eat it into a bizarre zombie-like creature before consuming them from the inside. There's a particularly gruesome scene with a character named Charlie, and all I can say is, poor Charlie. The Toxic Avenger. This is the most iconic of the trauma films about a nerdy high school boy who is mercilessly bullied to the point where he's chased out of a window, falling into a vat of toxic waste. He then transforms into a mutated hero known as the Toxic Avenger. The thing is, Toxie doesn't just knock criminals out, He fucks them up in brutally disturbing ways. It's so awesome. I love this movie. Three Extremes. Three Extremes is an anthology film composed of 3 horror shorts. They each have a little bit of body horror. Dumplings is about a woman who buys mysterious dumplings from a seller who promises they'll make her more beautiful and youthful. Turns out these dumplings are made of human fetuses. The second short, Cut, is about a director and his wife who are kidnapped by a man who slowly cuts off the wife's fingers, and Box, the final short, features conjoined twins, so yeah. Thrill Kill. Thrill Kill is a canceled PlayStation 1 fighting game that has since been made available through bootlegs online. The premise of the game is that 10 people have been sent to hell after they die and fight in a tournament. The winner will then be granted their life back. It features a roster of characters that are deformed in some way or another, including a dwarf with stilts in his legs, a cannibal who uses a severed leg as a weapon, and a surgeon who's grafted metal jaws onto his own face. Tony Robbins' Vor Scene. This is referring to a cutaway gag in Family Guy where Peter Griffin's swallowed whole by Tony Robbins, who unhinges his jaw and elongates his neck in order to devour him. Too Much Kirby. Too Much Kirby is an analog horror series about a mortal disease that breaks out from playing too much Kirby and features really disturbing imagery. Trent Shy. This is another YouTube animator who specializes in stop-motion claymation. He has a lot of horror elements to his videos. One series, called The Animator, is a first-person perspective from the animator himself as he tortures his claymation creations. Another video titled Pumpkin Boy shows an animated jack-o'-lantern eat a boy's face off. It's really another great channel to check out. You Can Know Joe. You Can Know Joe, or simply Joe, is another YouTube animator who's responsible for making the infamous Dog of Wisdom video. But memes aside, there are some really great and strange videos on his channel that sometimes feature body horror, like The Family Simp, a video about the Peter Griffin-Homer Simpson crossover where Peter and Homer are somehow killing each other in brutal ways before just coming back to life and doing it again. Like at one point in the fight, Homer chomps up Peter's head, swallows him, and literally shits him out. Unclassified Encounter. This is a YouTube channel about the supernatural featuring Bigfoot, ghosts, you name it. And it's all taking place during an alternate timeline World War II. Under the Skin. This is a really interesting film about a woman who picks up and then kills men. Well, kind of kills them. She's kind of an alien and sends them to a weird void. Anyway, near the end of the movie, she peels off her skin suit to reveal a strange featureless black body beneath, and it looks really creepy. Unedited footage of a bear. This is one of the strangest and most unsettling of the Adult Swim infomercials. It starts off as literally just unedited footage of a bear, but then an ad pops up about a new drug. But before you know it, the ad just keeps on going as we follow the woman who is taking the medication, and it appears she's been overtaking it, which has caused the adverse reaction of another insane killer version of her to appear. It's very unsettling in a lot of ways. Something about the way the duplicate stands and runs just really creeps me out. Upgrade. Upgrade is a revenge tale about a man who's left paralyzed after an attack but gets an implant called STEM that can control motor function, giving him the ability to move his body again. He goes on a revenge mission and the implant begins talking to him and giving him information. Unfortunately, his mind is eventually broken and STEM takes full control of his body. Villainous. Villainous is a Cartoon Network web series about the Black Hat organization, which is an evil group that helps villains overcome problems. At one point, Vilgax, the main antagonist from Ben 10, tries to shapeshift into the Black Hat leader, and it goes wrong, turning him into a two-headed deformed blob. WB Splatter. WB Splatter is part of a larger thing in which the WB sign has blood on it and also displays the word splatter. The idea is that the splatter has infected the show and now it's filled with blood and gore. Like I said, there's a lot to it, but all I know is there's a video on YouTube of Tom and Jerry and the Looney Tunes brutally mutilating each other's bodies. We all scream for ice cream. So this is an episode of the horror show Masters of Horror where a different horror story would be told every episode. And We All Scream for Ice Cream, a disfigured ice cream man comes back from the dead for revenge after a prank gone wrong kills him. The way he kills his victims is both hilarious and brutal. He makes ice cream in the shape of his victim and offers it to a child. If the child eats it, the person it was shaped like begins violently melting like ice cream. When Blackbirds Fly. When Blackbirds Fly is a really weird animated film about people living in heaven, a suburban paradise, and are told by their leader not to talk to the evil one who's outside of the wall that surrounds the town. There are many hellish, distorted scenes with some body horror moments. Where the Dead Go to Die. Where the Dead Go to Die is actually from the same director as When Blackbirds Fly and is actually much more intense when it comes to the gore. At one point, a devil dog pulls a woman's unborn child out of her womb and throws it aside before biting off her husband's penis. Their son, who witnesses this, now passes out and has visions where a fetus is trapped in a bubble and his parents have mutated into anthropomorphic dogs. This guy makes some really off-the-wall films, man. Woman to wolf morph. This is just a video where a woman, well, morphs into a wolf. It's really weird, and it looks like it's from PBS back in 2001. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's just got that classic visual style. Worm, web serial. This is a pretty big rabbit hole, or maybe I should say wormhole, to go down, but Worm is basically a superhero-based web serial, and within it are some pretty unsettling villains, like an indestructible woman who eats people alive, and a mad scientist who's turned himself into a living doll. Extro. Apparently this is just a really bizarre movie, but it's essentially about a man who's abducted by aliens. So let me give you an idea of how weird this is. 3 years after this alien abduction, a half-human, half-alien creature develops from a seed. It attacks and impregnates a young woman before dissolving. When she awakens later, her belly rapidly grows to a gargantuan size until she gives birth to a fully formed man who's the guy that was abducted originally. Talk about a mindfuck, and I mean, damn, her body is just literally ripped open by a full-grown man popping out. My God. Yabujin music videos. So Yabujine's a really weird musical artist. I'm not even sure how to define the genre, and the music videos are just as weird. Usually they feature bad cinematic effects, and sometimes there'll just be randomly really dark imagery, like, I don't know how to explain this one. Yuppie Psycho. Yuppie Psycho is a game where an unlikely candidate is hired by a huge company to hunt witches. I think I basically got that right. Well, there's some strange enemies in the game, including HR ladies whose heads are just giant mouths, and Dot Matrix, which is an experimental printer that moves with 4 human hands. Looks like a really unique game. Zombie Ass, Toilet of the Dead. I actually covered this movie on my J-Horror Iceberg and couldn't stop laughing. The plot of the movie is that some friends decide to go camping in the woods, and the reason why? One of the friends is a model who's heard about parasitic worms in the fish of the area, and she wants to catch a fish and eat it, hoping to get the worm so that she'll lose weight. No, seriously, that's the setup of this movie. Then she does get a parasite, but not the kind she wanted, because she ends up shitting out some shit virus eggs that cause the dead to rise up out of toilets and attack. There's these specific shit zombies that walk ass first towards their victims, and these sharp-toothed worms stick out of their assholes. It's one of the craziest Japanese movies I've ever seen, and I'm not doing it any justice. If you want to go check out the J-Horror Iceberg Tier 4, I think, where I break the whole thing down, you can do that. L'Interieur. I believe this is referencing a French horror film about a pregnant woman who's lost her husband, and she ends up being stalked and taken hostage by a strange lady who wants to take her unborn baby out of her. Yikes. Well, as the late great Freddie Mercury once said, another one bites the dust. We really are getting into some weird and obscure stuff here. I noticed this tier had a lot of films on it, which I love because I'm a horror clown, and there were a lot of them that I'd never heard of before, so I'm looking forward to checking those out. By the way, I know I mentioned the J-Horror Iceberg a lot because there are some overlapping entries. That's just another Iceberg series I did, and it's really in-depth. I explain over like 200 Japanese horror films. So if that sounds interesting to you, you should go check it out. Just don't be thrown off by my old mask. Once again, the music you're hearing in these intros and outros is by Kill Me Katie, so I got links to all of his stuff down below. Oh, and there are some corrections from the last video, but I decided maybe it'd be better if I just did all of the corrections at the end of the berg, unless it's really crucial. So I am thankful for all the helpful comments, and I will go over those later. But other than that, I think that's it. As always, this is Grief speaking. Goodbye, friends.